With the selection of Kamala Harris as the Democratic candidate for president, there has been, of course, a dramatic spike in racism and sexism happening online, directed at her and her supporters and basically every minority and woman alive. Examples range from conservative talk show host Eric Erickson trying to explain how Kamala is not really black. Tell me more about the black experience, Eric. To this tweet the day she became the candidate from Laura Loomer, a right-wing conservative influencer who said, and please skip this if you don't want to hear it, it is terribly offensive, "It's time for Republicans to start talking about Kamala Harris's sexual history and the reason why she doesn't have any children of her own. I'm willing to bet she has had so many abortions that she damaged her uterus. A woman who has no biological children of her own should not be allowed to make decisions in the White House for your children. Republicans need to run with this messaging and ask why a woman with no kids of her own and just a scarred up uterus is so obsessed with wanting to kill your babies. Kamala has zero investment in the future, but she wants to determine our future." Yeah, that's so horrible. To better understand this profound spike in sexism and racism and the conflict between the two, we can use the term misogynoir, which was coined by Moya Bailey in her book here. Bailey and her co-writer Whitney Peoples described it as a combination of misogyny, the hatred of women, and noir, meaning black, but also carries film and media connotations. It is the particular amalgamation of anti-black racism and misogyny in popular media and culture that targets black, trans, and cis women. I can highly recommend Misogynoir, Anti-Blackness, Patriarchy, and Refusing Wrongness of Black Women, which is in the Palgrave Handbook of Critical Race and Gender. These concepts were also further developed into ideas such as transmisogynoir, which discusses the intersection between transmisogyny and misogynoir, and this comprises transphobia, misogyny, and anti-blackness. And while this concept was only coined in 2008, it's also very important to remember this idea goes back much further than the person coming up with the term to describe it in academia. It also goes steeply into an American understanding of this, but do not think this doesn't apply in other countries because of many reasons, mostly the proliferation of American culture in popular media, but also, even more importantly, that other forms of transmisogynoir were happening in other countries, especially ones with colonial legacies. Misogynoir also delves into racist tropes that have been around for centuries in the United States, such as the strong black woman that is oftentimes used to justify not giving pain treatment in medicine because of a racist belief that black women can take more pain, or the other idea of the hypersexualized Jezebel of black women trying to steal white men. There is also the mammy role, where black women are imagined as the servant or person that should be raising the children of white families. And these racist mythologies create real problems and harm real people, even to the point of death, as documented by Fortessa Latifi in The Pain Gap: Why Women's Pain is Undertreated. Another sociological framework to understand this all is intersectionality, or how different combinations of different factors such as race, class, gender, a number of things, cause intersections that result in specific privileges or discriminations that are unique to those intersections of different factors. And this is a profound idea created in 1989. This groundbreaking framework was devised by Kimberly Crenshaw, a very talented sociologist out of UCLA. We can also imagine all of these combinations of factors as a bunch of overlapping Venn diagrams to each other. Crenshaw describes how interlocking systems of power affect the most marginalized in society, and activists and academics can both use this framework to understand and promote social and political egalitarianism. Intersectionality opposes analytical systems that create the idea that different axes of oppression are completely separate from one another. It is quite common sense to understand that these things do intersect and cause particular interactions with one another, such as, for instance, discrimination against black women being a combination of misogyny and racism. We also need to understand, in the context of an election, especially one fueled by sexism and racism, misogynoir becomes a campaigning tactic used by reactionaries to spread their views and try to gin up their supporters. And in this moment, the separation couldn't be more clear. Today, the vice presidential candidate for the Republicans in the United States, J.D. Vance, had to unfollow eugenicist and right-winger Steve Saylor, one of the ideologists that backs the Dark Enlightenment philosophy that J.D. Vance and his big sugar daddy billionaire Peter Thiel both support. Conversely, the Kamala Harris account followed Charlie XCX. So we can understand there's a pretty fundamental difference going on. And these hates are not isolated from one another. The ginning up of hatred towards migrants by the conservative media in the United States and worldwide, or the tech billionaire hatred towards trans people, these are all connected as part of a greater, broader strategy to attack women, minorities of both ethnicity and sexualities. They wish to create a reactionary society, and it is through their hate that they come together to destroy all of us. Now, please repost, and if you can, go to my bio and you can donate to a family who needs to rebuild and reunite.